November 18th, 2012. From San Diego, California, this is episode 6 of You Can Bet on That. Woo! All right, everybody, welcome once again to another episode of You Can Bet on That, a podcast for the recreational gambler. I'm Mark Duvall. Once again, I'm here with Dr. Mike.
Hello.
So how's your gambling been going since the last our last episode?
Well, not bad. Shortly after the last episode, out at Harrah's Rincon, had a good night. As you remember, it was actually after you left. When you left, I think I was pretty close to even.
Well, when I left after a really good roll.
Yeah, we had a really good roll, and that got me back to almost even.
Yeah.
And then my dad and I stayed a little longer, and the person after you left had a monster roll.
Well, just to give everybody some idea of how long this roll went, I left the table and I went and cashed in my chips. I went and got a hot dog over at Pink's, and I came back and it was the same shooter.
Same shooter, yeah.
And then I got in my car and left.
Right.
And about a half hour later, you called me and said, "Well, the roll's over."
Yeah.
So
it was a good hour.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she rolled for about an hour.
But it was slow. There were a lot of...
It was slow because there was a lot of betting, a lot of hard way betting. And it was the same repeat of the week before where she rolled 4 hard sixes during her roll.
Yeah.
So consequently, I got up to where I had a $200 hard six, and it hit and paid $1,800. And the end result was, in that roll, I won $3,800. So I ended up had $3,800 for the night. Yeah. Nice. And then we stayed like 2 shooters more. They were, of course, immediate 7 outs after the big roll. And that was it. And then left and went home. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. It's just...
I wish I'd stayed. Of course, if I'd stayed, everything would have been different, right?
Yeah, maybe. She still would have shot. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, well, good. And then you and I went last week, and...
and last week was not as good.
You didn't hit one parlay. Nothing.
No.
The hard ways just
How many hours were we there? We were there...
Oh, gosh. It wasn't too long. Maybe 3.
Yeah, probably like 3 hours, but never hit a parlay. Had a lot of them hit, especially 4s, remember?
Hard
4s seemed to come up.
They'd hit once.
They'd hit once, but never again. Every roll, it seemed like somebody rolled a hard 4. But no hard ways that night, and so it turned in to be a losing night. But we were there a short time, so that worked out good.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. And then you came to, I host a weekly poker game at my house, and you came, you used to come pretty regularly.
I used to come every night.
Now it's maybe every once a month or so.
Yeah.
You had a rough one.
Another bad one, yeah.
I'll tell you, your year, earlier this year, you were coming every week, and you took off like a rocket.
Right.
You must have been up about $700 for the year.
Yeah.
And
now what am I down, 200?
You're down about 200, yeah. It was just a huge run, and then you jumped off a cliff.
Well, it was like the last few weeks have been like this last week, where I just cannot make a hand. I mean, I have a good enough, I'll hit 2 pair with a possible low in like
Omaha
8, yeah. And then never make it, never materialize.
Yeah.
I have stuff to keep me in.
Right.
I had 3 low cards. I can't tell you, I'm deuce to 7 how many times I had 3 low cards to start with.
Yeah.
And would stay in and get a bad one, and then I'll see another one, get another bad one, and then
that's a rough game. Yeah. Well, so you left early when we played this week, but I was when the game was over. I was talking to Paul. Paul's a real regular player, probably the best poker player actually at our game.
I think by far. Yeah.
And
he reads people well.
He's very good at reading people and reading the situation. Yeah, he's very good. But I was talking to him, and he had gone out to Viejas, which is a tribal casino here in San Diego. Very easy to get to. It's right off the freeway. It's one of the closer ones to where we live, you and I, Mike, but we've told the listeners before, we just love going up to Harrah's just because of all the comps they give us.
Right.
But Paul likes going out to Viejas and playing Blackjack. We mentioned it before, that's probably his favorite game, the table game is Blackjack.
Well, for him, it's Blackjack, it's off the highway, it's close, and they have alcohol.
Right, they serve drinks. That's true. A lot of the tribal casinos don't serve alcohol. And thank God they don't, because a lot of them are just off these windy roads, and it would be a disaster. But so anyway, he was saying he went last week and won like $1,200 playing blackjack. But where he was winning his money was on this side bet that they have called Buster Blackjack. It's a side bet that you can make at the table. It's just a bet that the dealer will bust. and it's independent of your blackjack bet. So if you make
You
this,
can still lose your hand, but win the buster.
right? So you could lose. Yeah, if you bust first and you lose your regular blackjack hand, your buster blackjack bet could still win because it's just a bet as to whether the dealer's going to bust or not. And the way this buster blackjack bet works, it pays different amounts depending on how many cards it took the dealer to bust. So for one of the I think this is the pay table they have out at Viejas. If it takes 3 or 4 cards for the dealer to bust, you get 2 to 1 on that bet. So in other words, if the dealer is starts out with like a 9 and a 4 and he draws a 10, that's 3 cards. He busted on 3 cards. So if it takes 4 or 3 cards, it pays 2 to 1. If it's 5 cards for him to bust, it pays 4 to 1. 6 cards to bust pays 12 to 1. 7 cards to bust pays 50 to 1. And if it takes 8 cards or more for him to bust, it's 250 to 1, which is a huge payoff. But of course, that's hard to do. 8 cards.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of aces in there.
So, yeah, exactly. Aces and deuces. And then, ultimately you have to maybe hit up to 6. He has to hit up to 16 and then draw like a 6.
Right.
Or something, yeah.
Right.
So what, Paul, that's where he made his money. So I don't know if he hit one of those 7-card busts. He says, well, he was telling you how he bet. What does he do when he goes
Well,
there?
he makes his initial bet, whatever it is probably $25 on the blackjack hand and then $5 on the buster hand. And he told me that when he wins a hand, he ups his bet a certain amount, like say $5, so it makes a $30 bet. And he ups his buster bet, a few dollars.
Yeah.
So, and then if he wins that one again, he even goes more. So, the third bust in a row, he might have $15 out there on it. Right? Something like that.
And I think the maximum is 25 that you can bet on that buster blackjack. Right. So he hit like a 7-card or a couple of 6-card busts. But it's funny.
And he might have had 25 out there.
Right. I think maybe he did. So that's where he's making his money. Now, he's getting lucky. Like a lot of these side bets that they have on table games, there's a pretty big house edge. For this buster blackjack bet, it's over 6% house edge, which means that for every dollar you bet on that, you're going to lose 6 cents. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but when it comes to casino games, especially like blackjack, that's significant because you just playing blackjack, the house edge is only about 1% if you're playing correctly. Mm. So, like a lot of these side bets, they're a lot of fun to make. It is very exciting when they hit, and you can certainly make a lot of money in the short run, but in the long run, it
does eat you.
So, about a year ago, in April 2011, most people are probably aware, the government virtually shut down 3 of the biggest online poker sites: Full Tilt Poker, PokerStars, and Absolute Poker. And they shut them down basically not because they were providing poker. It was basically for violating a law on how they processed payments from players. And I won't go into a lot of details on that. You can look it up online if you want. But the sites stopped offering poker games to players in the United States. Now, PokerStars pretty quickly refunded American players their money. Whatever was in their account, they gave it back to them. And that was pretty good. Full Tilt did not right away. And I had been playing on Full Tilt exclusively. You had played on there a little bit too.
I played too.
Yeah. And I loved their Rush Poker. They had something called Rush Poker, where you'd play a hand, and as soon as you folded, you were immediately moved to another table, and you were dealt another hand. So I loved it. It got me back onto online poker. But after Black Friday, as they called it, when they shut these poker sites down, again, PokerStars paid off players right away. Full Tilt didn't. Well, a little while later, it turned out the reason Full Tilt did not pay back their players is because they didn't have the money. They had not been keeping players' funds separate. And in some cases, when a player had deposited money, Full Tilt never withdrew that money from those players' checking accounts. They posted it as being available on Full Tilt, but never actually withdrew the money. So,
which is strange.
I don't know why it happened that way. And I'm sure you can feel free to research this a little bit more on your own. But anyway, what ultimately happened was some of the people in Full Tilt were accused of running a Ponzi scheme, which is not technically what a Ponzi scheme is, but the idea is, hey,
Similar.
where's everybody's money, right?
Right.
Well, fairly recently here, PokerStars agreed to give the government several $100 million to acquire Full Tilt and pay money back to the people who had Full Tilt accounts and acquire Full Tilt. So right away, PokerStars, I believe, was able to refund non-American players their money, with the idea that the money that PokerStars had given to the Department of Justice would be distributed to the American players who had Full Tilt accounts. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, it's up to the Department of Justice to give us back our money. I had about $220 on it, which was no big deal. It was all winnings. And it's like, I was playing online poker. So from the beginning, how safe was my money?
Right. Exactly. But it's still your money.
It's still, right. It's still my money. And there were some people who had like six figures on there.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Some significant amount of money. So anyway, a couple of weeks ago, PokerStars actually relaunched Full Tilt as a poker site, which kind of surprised a lot of people because Full Tilt got a pretty black eye from this whole thing. And, it was the name even going to be legitimate anymore? Would people take it seriously? But they just started up Full Tilt here again recently, and I logged into my account, and sure enough, I'm able to play play money stuff, and my Full Tilt points that are available to use in their store, they're up there. But my account says $0. And apparently that's a lot of American players are seeing that too. And it's like, what's going to happen, right?
Right.
And the last I heard is, the Department of Justice, they're going to hire a third party to work out these distributions. And
you still, even if you got the money back, can you still play poker on that site for real money?
Not in America.
No. Right. So what good does it do you? I mean, you want, other than getting your money back, of
right.
course.
I mean, that's the thing.
But you're not going to be able to play for real money.
No, but, hopefully, not in America.
Yeah.
So a lot of
we're the craziest country in the world.
I don't know. It is funny that, you can play poker in Europe, on these sites, but not here.
Well, 2 states just passed to legalize marijuana.
Right.
But we can't play poker online with our own money.
That's exactly right.
I mean, it's your own money. If you want to lose it, or you want to take your chances that it might not be legitimate or whatever, I mean, that's your right, right? I mean, I don't get that at all.
Well, I'm happy that supposedly I'm going to be getting this money back, because I pretty much written it off, especially after these Ponzi scheme allegations, I'm never going to see that money again. So the fact that I may still get it back, hey, that's great. But it looks like it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. And, it's not, I know a lot of people, when Full Tilt started up again and they see these zero balances, it's like, oh no, right? What's going wrong? But the Department of Justice has the money.
If you had 6 figures on there and that money was gone, could you write that off on your taxes as theft or,
Yeah.
I wonder if people did. If they did, then now what if they get it back?
Yeah, right. Well, see, that's the thing is, this money that we're getting, is it going to be taxed?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, because in a lot of cases, they're not winnings. People just, I made $100 deposit and then Black Friday hit.
Right.
I just want my money back from
Right.
Who knows how that's going to go? We'll see.
Yeah.
Now, you had a different problem with Full Tilt, though, right?
Yeah, my problem was I had put money in that they took out of my account that never got online.
Yeah. So yours was almost the opposite of what some of these people.
And then I went to my bank, because I had done it through my bank. I had a separate small little checking account,
right? Just for that.
Yeah. So that if anything happened, if somebody accessed that or whatever, they'd get nothing.
That's good.
I mean, there's like $200 in there.
Right.
And I put 100 in, and something.
Yeah.
Cost me nothing at the bank to have the account. And so it's, it virtually is foolproof. If somebody steals that, wants to steal $100, fine. So, I put like $100 in, and then it never showed up.
Yeah, so they were withdrawing it from your account, but it not
posted it to me.
So what, did you put like a stop payment on or something?
No, I just called the bank and explained it, and they said, okay, fine. They put the $100 back in my account. Okay. And if they got it from them, I don't know.
But then Full Tilt came back and said, hey, this is no good. We're banning you, right? Didn't you get banned?
Yeah, they said something like, like not, I don't know, banned, but like what happened to your payment didn't go through or something like that. And at that point I had enough with them, so I just I forgot about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I never went online again.
All right. Well, anyway, hopefully I'll get my money back, and I'll let everybody know if and when that happens.
We'll spend it at Rincon.
That's right. All right. So we'd like to introduce a new segment this week, poker home game segment, where we're going to talk about some of the poker games that you might play in a home game, but that you would not find in a casino. So wild card games. Yeah. Goofy draw games.
We've made a ton of them up.
Yeah. So not the kind of thing that you'd see in a casino, but a lot of poker podcasts pretty much ignore these games because they're kind of like carnival games. They're more social games that you play.
Right. They're fun at home though.
They are fun.
They're fun at home.
Some of the games that we might talk about in the future are like high-low declare games. That's where, you declare whether you're going to go high or low on a hand, play a high poker hand or a low poker hand. And the way that we do it at our home game, you take chips underneath the table and you put one chip in your fist if you're going to go low and two if you're going to go high. And you do that under the table, and then you bring your fist up and reveal which way you're going. They don't do that at casinos.
No. It'd be fun if they did.
It would be, oh my gosh, the kind of tricks that people try to pull, right? Yeah. Hiding chips like in their hands.
They'd have a camera under the table looking at what the other guy's doing.
God. Do you remember one, and since we're talking about it, Paul's Uncle Ike used to play cards with us, and he was a character. And I remember one time he put one chip in one hand and two chips in another and brought them both onto the table.
Right.
And then only opened one of them up.
Right.
It's like, Ike, you can't do that. You're going to be able to look at what everybody else is doing and then decide which fist you're going to open.
Well, remember, Ike as a character, I always laugh about the time that 3 6s happened to be, we were playing some game and the cards were dealt out and they were dealt up and 3 6s came in a row, and he made the hugest thing about how could that be? How could 3 6s?
I know. Here we've been playing for like 15 years, right, once a week, and for one time 3 6s come up in a row.
Like, it could never happen.
That's right. It's rigged. Somebody's cheating. Well, the game that we want to talk about this week is called Follow the Queen, and this is a fairly well-known game amongst home game players, and it involves wild cards. And here's how it works. It's a 7-card stud game, so you deal it out like 7-card stud. And when a queen is dealt up, the next up card dealt is wild, and all like it. So, for example, let's say we're at the table and player 1 gets a queen up. The next card dealt to player 2 is going to be wild. So let's say that card is a 3. Player 2 gets a 3. Now, 3s are wild. All the 3s in the deck are wild. And play continues. If, during the course of the deal, another queen is dealt up, now 3s are no longer wild, and instead the next card dealt up is wild. Maybe it's a 7 or something. Okay. So the idea is that whatever card follows the queen is wild and makes whatever previous wild card not wild anymore.
Right. So your hand changes a lot.
They can change. Suddenly, you could start, I've got a wild card, and then by the time the hand is dealt, right, you don't have a wild card anymore.
So how about if the last card up is dealt as a queen? Right.
So there are a lot of different ways you can play this. We've played before where if the very last up card is a queen, nothing is wild. We've played where if the last card dealt up is a queen, queens are wild. Mm-hmm. The rule that I introduced that's a little too confusing, and I don't make people play this anymore, but I said, well, if the queen is the last card dealt up, then whatever the first card dealt up when we started the game would be wild.
That makes sense to me.
I like that, but I think...
And people have a hard time figuring out who was the first card.
So you have to keep track of what the first card... I kind of like that rule too, but it's up to you. You can take any of those rules or make one up of your own. We've even played before where all queens were wild to begin with.
Right, and I think we played once where all queens were wild and the card after it was wild. So there were
Right.
a lot of wild
Right,
cards.
so you could have more than one.
Which
yeah,
is
exactly.
kind of crazy.
Many
wild cards.
When you get too many wild cards, then suddenly everybody has a royal flush or a five of a kind or something, right? So, but there are a lot of different rules. The way that I have been playing it lately, and we don't play it that often, but sometimes when I get together with groups other than our regular home game, we'll play this. That the very first person dealt an up card, they're sort of at a disadvantage because they didn't have the option of a queen being dealt before their up card. So what we usually do is after everybody gets their 2 down cards in the deal, we deal up a dummy card, just a burn card basically.
Yeah, that's good.
And if that card is a queen, then the person who gets the first up card, they get the wild card.
That's good.
Yeah.
I haven't done that before.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it because it's not confusing. You don't have to keep track, what happens if a queen comes up at the end. So we do it that way. And it has happened before where, sure enough, a queen has come up as that dummy card. So that's basically the game in a nutshell. Now, how should you play this game? And I think this is true of a lot of wild card games. Obviously, when the game is just starting off and nobody has a wild card, a queen has not been dealt up, I think you want to play hands that can at least make big hands. Because in a wild card game, the winning hand in a 7-card stud game is probably going to be a full house at least.
Probably, yeah.
Right, because when somebody has wild cards, they can make 4 of a kind, straight flushes. Right. Sometimes a straight or a flush will win in a wild card game.
Yeah, but full house, you feel more comfortable.
If you've got a full table of like 8 players or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. You need a full house.
So I think before any wild cards have been revealed, you really want to be looking for strong hands, big pairs, cards that work together to make straight flushes, that kind of thing. Now, once a wild card is revealed, obviously, if you're the person with the wild card, I think you need to be pretty aggressive and play pretty fast to get other people to fold because you don't want another queen to come up.
The fewer in, the less chance of a queen.
Right. You don't want another queen to come up and change your wild card.
Right.
And if you are playing and you don't have a wild card, so let's say that first wild card comes up and it's a 3, and you don't have a 3, and the best you can do is maybe draw to a straight or something. Just get out while the getting's good. Right. Because wild cards are so powerful in these games. Right. Maybe stay in if you've got like 3 of a kind. But if you don't also have a wild card, you want to get out. The best position to be in is, again, let's say, a queen comes up and then the next player gets a 3 and 3s are wild. If you're sitting somewhere else at the table and you've got a 3 like in the hole, then you're in great shape because nobody knows you have the wild card and maybe you can.
Right. And you might actually just want to let the better bet.
Yeah.
And just go along.
Yeah.
That way you're safe because you have a decent chance to win. And if it changes, you haven't raised and upped yourself into dug yourself in a hole that you can't get out of. But you're at an advantage. Just sit back.
Yeah. My experience has been that people stay in way too long in this game because they're thinking, oh, well, maybe the wild card will change and I'll get it. Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, but, there are only 4 queens in the deck. Right. So, and speaking of which, this is another thing too. If you're, this has happened to me before. If you're dealt like pocket queens.
Right.
You might want to really just start being real aggressive from the beginning.
Right.
Because you've already got a pocket pair, and the chances of a queen coming up now are reduced quite a bit. You may have no wild cards.
Well, in an 8-player game, 16 cards are dealt down right from the beginning.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So chances are there's a queen or 2 out there already down.
Right. And we didn't mention this before, but typically, if no queens are ever dealt up, nothing's wild.
7-card stud.
Yeah, it's just a regular 7-card stud game. Right. But I think the key to it is if you really have no potential or very little potential and you don't already have a wild card, just fold. It's fun to stay in and try to get that wild card, but the chances are against you, So just, get out while the getting's good. All right, so let's move on. We want to talk tonight about craps and the free odds bet that you can make. And this is a very important bet. We didn't talk about it in our first episode when we were kind of going over the basics of craps because it is a little more complicated, but it's an extremely important bet that you can make on the craps table. It's called free odds. It is a bet that you make along with your pass line bet once a point has been established. And whereas you will only get paid even money on the pass line when your point is made, you will get paid at the true mathematical odds of making your point on your free odds bet. All right, so that sounds a little complicated. Let's come up with some examples. So let's say you make a $5 bet on the pass line, and the shooter rolls a 6. So now your point is 6. This is the time when you can make the free odds bet. It's a bet that you make right behind your pass line bet on the layout. There's no marked location on the layout that shows where you put your odds. Yeah. You just put it behind your pass line bet. And how much you can bet there depends on the casino. But for our example right now, let's just say you put $5 there. So you have $5 on the pass line, and you make a $5 free odds bet. Now, if the shooter sevens out, you lose both bets. But if the shooter makes his point, in our example, a 6, again, you'll get paid $5 on the pass line, but you'll get paid the true odds of making a 6 before a 7, which are 6 to 5.
Correct.
So for the $5 odds bet, you'll win $6. Mm-hmm. So why are the odds 6 to 5 on a 6? Well, it's because with 2 dice, there are 5 ways to make a 6, and there are 6 ways to make a 7. So 6 to 5. So this free odds bet will also pay a different amount depending on what your point is. So let's, again, in our example, $5 on the pass line. The shooter establishes a point of 4. Now you put $5 free odds bet. Okay? 7 comes up, you lose both of them. But if a 4 comes up, even money on the pass line, and you get paid 2 to 1 on your odds bet. In other words, $10 for the 5 that you have bet. Because the odds of rolling a 4 before a 7 are 2 to 1. There are 3 ways to roll a 4 and 6 ways to roll a 7. So 2 to 1.
2 to 1.
Now, the reason this bet is so important is because the casino has no house edge on it. Literally 0 house edge.
You're getting paid truly what you deserve for making that.
Exactly. Now, you can only make these odds bets along with a pass line bet or a come bet. So it's not like you can just go up to the table and only make an odds bet. Yeah, that'd be great if you could.
Well, you can. Remember our good friend John Saxer from years ago, who's since deceased, but would tell us how he would go to a casino and stand next to somebody, and then when they didn't take odds, or they didn't take full odds, would ask him if he could put their odds there for him.
That's right.
And he would place odds.
That's right.
So, I mean, he was getting the best of both worlds. He didn't have any of the liability that the pass line gives you, and he just got true odds from behind.
That's great. And John was such a nice guy, too, that, if you knew him, it's funny that he'd be doing this. Who could say no to him?
No, he's the nicest guy in the world. People would, oh, yeah, sure.
So it's an important bet because there's no house edge. The payouts, again, depend on what the point is. If the point is 4 or 10, the free odds pay 2 to 1. If the point is 5 or 9, the odds pay 3 to 2. And if the point is 6 or 8, the free odds pay 6 to 5. So just to review those payouts again, the payout is also going to determine how much you bet on the odds. So again, 4 and 10 are 2 to 1. 5 and 9 are 3 to 2. So you want to bet an even amount on the odds. Right. Something when I say even amount, divisible by 2. Right? Otherwise, you're not going to get paid correctly. Like if you have $5 out there and the point is 5 and they roll a 5, the casino's only going to pay you $7 because most casinos don't have, they should pay you $7.50, right. But most casinos don't have 50-cent chips. And then again, if the point is 6 or 8, you want to bet a multiple of 5 on the free odds because the payoff is 6 to 5. Now, how much the casino will allow you to bet on the free odds depends on 2 things. Number 1, how much you have bet on the pass line, And number two, the rules at that particular casino. So, for example, some casinos will let you bet 2 times odds, double odds. That means they'll let you bet on the free odds up to twice as much as you have on the pass line. So if you've got $5 on the pass line, they'll let you bet up to anything up to $10 on the free odds. Most casinos now, certainly most casinos on the Las Vegas Strip, will let you bet up to 3 times your bet if the point is 4 or 10. Up to 4 times your bet if the point is 5 or 9, and up to 5 times the bet if the point is 6 or 8. They call that 3, 4, 5 times odds. There are some casinos that offer 10 times odds, 100 times odds. I know the Casino Royale on the Strip, 100 times
Still
odds.
100 times odds.
For a while, the Riviera in Las Vegas was offering 1,000 times odds.
Yeah.
They're not doing that anymore. They got rid of that.
The thing about that is if you have an unlimited bankroll, let's say you went in with, $1 million, you want to play at the casino that lets you take the most possible odds you can because you're getting paid exactly what you deserve when that comes up. So by far the best bet at any table game in gambling. And so, if you can play at 100 times odds, you're best to put $1 on the line and 100 behind it.
Yeah, if you can afford it. Now, it's interesting you bring up bankroll because years ago, Mike and I, we used to deal craps for parties. And typically we'd have to explain the game to people. And I always said, always take odds and always take as much odds as you can.
Right.
I've kind of backed off from that a little bit simply because your bankroll might not be able to handle.
Right. You have to play within your bankroll.
Yeah. Now, for example, back when years ago in Vegas, double odds was pretty much the norm. And I was betting like $5 on the pass line and come bets.
Yeah, then you should always take double.
The double odds, that was fine. But with 3, 4, 5 times odds now, and the fact that you can't really find a $5 table minimum in Vegas, like on a Friday night or anything. If you're betting max odds, they could really eat up your bankroll. For example, remember Mike, a few years back, we walked over to Encore, and I was just betting $10 with full odds. So in other words, the 3, 4, 5 times odds.
Right.
So if my point was like 6 or 8, that means I had a $10 pass line bet and $50 odds. And I'll tell you, I went through $500 in 5 minutes. I don't know if you remember that, but we didn't win a single bet.
Right. And that can happen.
That
can happen.
So these days, I don't necessarily take full odds, but here's what I will say. If you're not betting the table minimum on the pass line, you should be taking full odds.
Right.
Otherwise, bet the minimum
on
the pass line and take as many odds as you're comfortable with.
Which is a good point because so many times, I can't tell you how many times you'll see people, especially novices, come up to a table and for some reason they'll put $10 on the line.
Right, it's like a $5 minimum table.
Yeah, right. And they'll put $10 on the line, because they understand the pass line bet. And then the guy will say, take some odds, and they'll put $5 behind.
On the odds,
On the odds. Mm-hmm. And you'd be so much better putting 5 on the line and putting the 10 behind, right? I mean, it's a better payout, but people don't understand that. They just think, I'm going to, that's too much money I've got out there now.
Yeah.
So, always take the minimum. If your bankroll is limited, play the minimum amount on the line and then take the most odds you can behind.
Right. Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Right, exactly. So. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the the free odds are also available on come bets. We haven't really talked about come bets, and we probably will on a future show. But for those who are already a little familiar with craps, odds are also available on come bets. And
works exactly the
same rules apply, right? You just hand the dealer your bet and say, this is my odds on my come bet that just went up to a 6 or whatever. Right. All right. So that's how free odds bet. Bet on the free odds.
Got to bet them.
All right. That's going to do it for this episode of You Can Bet on That. Don't forget to visit our website, youcanbetonThat.com, where you can check out our show notes and leave comments. Also, you can follow us on Twitter @YouCanBetOnThat. Or the best thing to do would be to email us.
Please email us.
Questions and complaints. Yeah. And hey, you went to a casino and you couldn't figure out why they were hitting on soft 17. Write to us with your questions.
Look, try and stump us. Seriously, send us an email with something that happened at a casino, and if we can't figure out why, I'll buy you dinner.
That shouldn't be too hard, folks. So
Yeah.
this is a free dinner.
Yeah.
You might as well write it. Our email address is youcanbetonThat@gmail.com. That's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you next time.
Good night.